Hey guys, tonight we're going to leave behind your soft bed, your Wi-Fi, and the miracle of iced drinks, because you're about to join a dusty, clanking camel caravan inching its way across Central Asia. The sun is a molten disk above. The sand is doing its annual tour inside your shoes. And someone upwind just opened a sack of fermented goat cheese. Welcome to the Silk Routes, where cinnamon is as good as gold. And you probably won't survive this unless you like heat, hooves, and humming the same 5-note tune for 6 days straight. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where and when you're tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're walking beside a tall, shaggy Bactrian camel. His name is Cash, and he does not like you. You suspect this because every time you drift too close, he swings his head toward your ribs with the air of a disgruntled old man trying to reclaim his spot on the bus. His breath smells like pickled onions and old parchment. The caravan master says it means he likes you. The caravan is moving out from Samarkand, one of those oasis cities that sparkle with tiled domes and tea gardens, until you're about 2 hours into the desert and realize they're all behind you now. Samarkand had a bazaar so large that you could buy a Persian carpet, a live parrot, and a poem about your horoscope, all before breakfast. You regret not buying that collapsible copper bathtub. Regret is the dominant emotional setting for most Silk Road travelers, by the way. You glance back at the train of camels, about 50 of them, lurching along with slow, determined grace. Each one is loaded with sacks of cinnamon bark from Ceylon, bolts of raw silk-dyed indigo in Kashgar, and one single crate that jingles suspiciously whenever anyone walks by it. No one knows what's inside, and no one asks. This is a good rule of thumb out here. Historians still argue whether cinnamon truly came from Ceylon during this time, or whether it was sourced more locally and just marketed better by traders who knew the power of a good exotic label. Regardless, it's treated like treasure. You've been warned not to sneeze near it. The desert around you is more rock than sand. A wide plain littered with the bones of ancient seashells and the odd tuft of grass that bravely regrets existing. The sun hums overhead in a white silence that makes you feel like you're inside a giant clay oven. You shield your face with a scarf you bought from a vendor who claimed it had been blessed by a 110-year-old mystic. Judging by the faint smell of soup, that might be true. Ahead, the caravan master, a woman named Yulduz, raises one arm, the signal for water. Everyone groans with the kind of synchronized despair that only comes from days of sweating through the same 3 outfits. You veer off toward a narrow canyon, where water pools in a shallow stone basin beneath a fig tree. It's brackish, but it's wet. One of the younger traders scoops a bit onto his neck and sighs so dramatically. A nearby camel joins in. At night, you'll sleep beneath the stars. No tents out here. It's all about curling up beside your camel and hoping it doesn't roll over in the night. The stars are endless, like scattered pearls on dark velvet. You trace constellations with your finger and wonder if that one looks more like a goat or a fainting merchant. Sleep is a little harder when you're sharing airspace with scorpions and the guy next to you who insists on humming lullabies from his hometown. But eventually, the desert cools, the breeze whispers across your face, and the sound of camels chewing their cud becomes the world's most oddly effective white noise. There's something timeless about the rhythm of the caravan. Wait, walk, chew something vaguely bread-like, walk more, exchange stories with someone carrying dried apricots in their hat, walk again. You overhear snatches of languages you don't speak: Turkic, Sogdian, a little Sanskrit. Occasionally someone yells in Greek. It's like the world's most chaotic opera rehearsal. One night, an old merchant from Bukhara shares a story. He claims that cinnamon isn't just traded, it's also burned in secret rituals to summon favorable winds. Or better prices. He adds, winking. No one questions it. Out here, half-truths travel faster than camels. You help carry a sack of cinnamon for a few hours the next day and discover firsthand why it's called brown gold. It leaks scent through its seams, warm, sweet, earthy, and makes you long for baked apples, warm drinks, and anything not involving dried goat meat. The scent is so strong that even the camels seem calmer. For a moment, you imagine what it might be like to trade not in silver or silk, but just in smells. Maybe someday. Still, you can't get too dreamy. You nearly trip over a scorpion the size of a fork. And Cash, your favorite hater, spits vaguely in your direction with great accuracy. The desert has no patience for nostalgia. And so you continue. The rhythm of hooves on packed earth. The sway of camel saddles. The occasional burst of laughter when someone forgets the word for lentil and accidentally asks for angry dust. You're not sure what time it is. Or what century. You're not even sure which empire you're technically walking through. But that's the silk routes for you, blurry, ancient, scented with spice, and always 2 steps away from a camel's bad mood. You wake up with a pebble pressed into your shoulder and the fuzzy realization that your camel used your scarf as a pillow. He looks smug about it, too. The morning air is crisp, surprisingly so, and as you stretch beneath the still pale sky, you catch the first rustlings of the caravan waking up around you. Someone's already burning a small pot of tea, and someone else is complaining loudly about stepping in something warm and squishy. Classic start to the day. Today, you're trudging across what looks like a lunar landscape. Flat, endless gravel plains stretch in every direction, broken only by the occasional gnarled shrub and the dusty remains of a wall built by people whose names are long forgotten. You wonder what they were trying to keep out, or in. A few camels glance at the wall and keep walking, unimpressed. As you walk, you start to realize something quietly shocking. The silk routes aren't actually about silk. You've been duped by the name. Like everyone else. Yes, silk is traded. It's shimmering and light and folds into bundles smaller than a loaf of bread. But if you actually tally up what these caravans carry, silk is just a whisper in a chorus. There's salt. So much salt. Tea bricks from China. Furs from the steppes. Coral from the Red Sea. Even glassware that somehow survived 1,000 miles of bouncing camel. Historians still argue whether the term Silk Road came from ancient usage or was invented much later by European romantics who liked a catchy headline. Most agree it wasn't widely used until the 19th century, which makes you feel slightly better about having no clue what's really in your own camel's cargo sacks. Yulduz walks beside you for a while, pointing out the oddities of this particular stretch. She tells you of traders who once hauled ice wrapped in straw all the way from the mountains, selling it to desert lords who wanted cold melon in July. You squint at the horizon, trying to picture this. You mostly picture it melting halfway through. Then there are the more unusual commodities. Collapsible bronze bathtubs, perfume oils stored in goat bladders. You politely decline to ask for a sample. And one story about a man who made a fortune shipping live peacocks to India, until a few of them escaped mid-route and triggered a days-long panic when a guard thought they were desert demons. You pass another caravan going in the opposite direction, lighter now, having sold most of their goods. They look lean, sunburned, and one of them is wearing a necklace of dried garlic cloves that you sincerely hope is for trade, not fashion. You nod in greeting. They nod back. This is high-speed conversation on the silk routes. That afternoon, you walk through the remains of a ghost market. Only the stone outlines of stalls remain now, crumbling into the sand. Yulduz tells you that a century ago, this was a buzzing checkpoint, famous for a type of honey-cured almond no one can make anymore. It died with the last almond priest. She says. You can't tell if she's joking. And honestly, you're too dehydrated to follow up. You pause beside a low ridge where, tucked into a niche of rock, someone's left behind a scrap of faded parchment. The ink is mostly gone, but you can just make out a crude drawing of what looks like a man, a camel, and an enormous fish. Or maybe it's a dragon. The artist clearly had enthusiasm, if not proportions. Yulduz smiles when you show her some trader with too much free time. Or maybe a warning. You raise an eyebrow. About what? She shrugs. Depends on the fish. That's the thing about these routes, they're not just highways for goods. They're clogged with stories, half-truths, merchant tall tales, and legends so ancient that even the mountains roll their eyes. There are whispered directions to cities made entirely of bone, rivers that run backward, and markets where time behaves strangely. You don't believe most of them, but every now and then, you start to wonder. You settle for a midday break beneath a crooked acacia tree. One of the older traders shares dried apricots and a bit of something he claims is cheese but might just be salted candle wax. You chew politely. Meanwhile, the camels nap. their necks folded like accordion hinges. Faces slack with the profound peace of animals who know they're in charge. It's during this lull that you overhear someone mutter about antique corals from the Moroccan coast. Your ears perk up. That's new. You nudge Yulduz for confirmation. She nods. Rare trade. Only a few caravans handle that. Tricky borders. Risk of pirates. In the desert? Everywhere, she says, not elaborating. Your world feels bigger than it did yesterday. The Silk Roads are not a single road. They're not even all on land. They're a tangle of dusty paths, secret trails, sea lanes, and whispered deals. Each caravan carries more than goods, it carries accents, recipes, letters, diseases, dreams, and behind every crate is a story waiting to be traded. Just before sunset, you pass a cairn of stones left to mark a trail fork. A few weather-worn trinkets sit nestled at the base, beads, a worn boot, and a tiny clay figurine of a man with 6 fingers. You leave a smooth pebble from your pocket. It's not much, but it feels like the right thing to do. As night falls, the wind picks up, rustling across the plains like distant applause. You curl up near Cash, who, it must be said, is slightly less hostile now that you shared your apricot, and watch the stars reclaim the sky. You've learned a lot today, that silk was the decoy, that peacocks are terrible at stealth, and that the more you walk the silk routes, the less you understand them. But that's okay. Some roads aren't for arriving, they're just for walking. You wake up to the sound of groaning. Not human groaning, though let's be honest. Your joints would qualify, but a deep, resonant, emotionally charged groaning coming from the camels. Apparently, they don't like mornings either. Cash is already standing, his giant eyelashes blinking in what can only be described as camel judgment. You haul yourself upright, dust off the night, and brace for another day of sand, sweat, and spectacularly bad jokes from the guy 2 camels behind who thinks he's funny. Spoiler, he isn't. The caravan gets moving slowly. Everything about camels is deliberate. From their chewing to their blinking to the dramatic way they seem to question the meaning of existence every time you ask them to carry something. You walk beside them now, your feet tracing ruts that might be 1,000 years old. The sun is barely up when the first gust of wind hits. Not a breeze, not a flirtatious puff. A full-on desert mood swing. Sand swirls into your eyes, mouth, and, somehow, your inner ear. You wrap your scarf tighter and watch as the entire caravan slows, bows its collective head, and accepts that today is going to be a crunchy one. Sandstorm season, Yulduz mutters, pulling her own scarf over her nose. Could be worse, could be camel drama. You glance at Cash. Cash chooses this exact moment to scream. It's not a roar. Exactly. More of a yodel from the bottom of a barrel. Bactrian camels are not shy when it comes to expressing their displeasure. And Cash has many things to be displeased about. The sand, the saddle, the pack of oddly shaped bronze bells he's been carrying that apparently clang in just the wrong frequency. He bucks. Not high, not wild. Just enough to send his saddlebag skittering sideways and his rider, a quiet trader named Fahid, scrambling to keep hold. The camel behind him snorts in offense and swings its head. This is how it begins, not with a storm, but with a snit. Camel drama, Yulduz explains, is an art form. One irritated camel can set off a chain reaction, an entire moodscape of grumbles, snorts, leg flopping, and strategic lying down. Today, you get the full performance. 10 minutes into the storm, one of the younger camels named Misha has decided the sand is personal. She drops to her knees, then her side, then refuses to get up until someone brings her dried melon rinds. No one has any. A tense standoff ensues. Historians still argue whether caravan efficiency was more affected by external threats, bandits, terrain, or internal ones, like camel tantrums and interpersonal spice theft. Today, you lean toward the latter. Eventually, someone sings an old lullaby. Someone else offers a crumbled fig cake. And Misha relents. Slowly, grudgingly, the caravan starts to move again. You trudge on, blinded by gusts of powdered earth, feeling your skin turn into something between parchment and sandpaper. You'd give anything for a lemon-scented wet wipe. Instead, you settle for a handful of damp cloth and hope the sand exfoliates you into a better version of yourself. And yet, there's something about the way the storm dances. The wind makes the dunes sing, high and soft, like voices from deep underground. You can't see more than 10 feet ahead, but the shapes are strange and beautiful, humps of golden earth shifting like water. Silhouettes of camels emerging like ghosts and vanishing again. You pass through what looks like a sunken bowl of land where wind has carved perfect scallops into the rock. The sand hisses around you. Somewhere to your left, a camel bell jingles, off-key. Forlorn. It's strangely comforting. By midday, the storm passes. The sky clears to a deep, endless blue, and the world feels wrung out and rinsed. Everything's covered in a thin layer of grit, including you. You try to spit, but your mouth is too dry. You crunch when you blink. The caravan regroups near a half-buried milestone, an ancient slab etched with faded letters in at least 3 languages. Yulduz rubs at it with a corner of her tunic, revealing what might be a number, or a recipe, or possibly a warning. 10 leagues to the next well, she says, if no one gets dramatic. Cash snorts. You take it as a promise. That evening, as the sky turns molten, you help pitch a small windbreak using camel blankets and 2 leaning sticks. Dinner is a communal affair, lentils, flatbread, and something everyone insists is lamb, but you're pretty sure isn't. The mood is lighter now. Someone plays a stringed instrument with only 3 working strings. Someone else juggles apricot pits. You laugh more than you expect to. Maybe it's the lack of oxygen, or the mild spice hallucination. One of the elders tells a story about a sandstorm so fierce it moved a whole caravan sideways. Woke up in a different kingdom, he says, chuckling. You're not sure he's joking. The night deepens. The wind has stilled. The camels chew slowly, rhythmically. You lie on your side, staring at the stars. There's a thin slice of moon, and it makes everything silver. You listen to Cash breathe, long, slow exhales, and wonder how many nights like this the Silk Routes have seen. Thousands, probably, millions of footsteps, whispers carried on the wind. Your eyes drift shut. You think of cinnamon, camel complaints, and the delicate absurdity of peacocks in a sandstorm. Tomorrow will bring more dust, more heat, probably more camel drama. But for now, you sleep. You're jolted awake by the smell of garlic. Not the pleasant, roasted kind that makes you dream of buttery toast, but the raw, aggressive kind that insists you're in its territory now. It's breakfast time, Silk Route style, which means a shared pot of lentils, some crushed dates, and garlic so fresh it might still be planning revenge. You stretch and wipe sleep from your eyes as Yulduz waves you over. We're reaching a caravanserai today, she says, grinning like someone who knows exactly how much you want a roof and a chair. Maybe even a bath. You blink at her. A what now? She nods solemnly. A bath. Don't get excited. It might just be a puddle with rules. The road feels easier today, less windy. The earth packed solid by generations of hooves. You walk with a bit more spring in your step. Partly because you're desperate for shade. Partly because someone promised cardamom tea at the next stop. The camels seem to sense the shift too. Even Cash is humming, in his own deep, gurgling way, like a throat-clearing opera singer with a personal vendetta against silence. You crest a low ridge by late morning. And there it is, the caravanserai. A squat rectangle of stone rising like a fortress from the sand. Its thick walls ringed with clay-colored domes. The gate is open, and traders are already spilling in, dusty, hungry, jangling with coins and complaints. Inside, it's bustling. You step into the courtyard and immediately feel cooler. Shaded archways line the walls, each leading to a little cell, bare rooms with woven mats and niches for oil lamps. The stone underfoot is smooth, worn by thousands of travelers who, just like you, once dragged their tired limbs across it while dreaming of baths and garlic-free zones. Caravanserais were the lifeblood of Silk Road travel. More than just inns, they were logistics hubs, gossip centers, customs checkpoints, and temporary homes to everyone from Turkish horse traders to Buddhist monks in transit. Historians still debate whether these caravanserais were sponsored by states, built by philanthropists, or simply evolved like mushrooms in places where traders like to complain in groups. Yulduz leads you to a stall where your camel can rest. A boy brings water, and Cash slurps it with such theatrical gusto you swear he's doing it for applause. You pat his flank. He doesn't kick you. This is growth. Then it's your turn. You head toward the communal washing room. A domed chamber smelling faintly of ash, mint, and desperation. The water is cold. The bucket is leaky. But it's the best feeling you've had since that time you found a half-crushed apricot under your saddlebag 3 days ago. Clean-ish. You settle into a corner of the courtyard where traders are gathered around a man selling, of all things, goat stew in tiny ceramic bowls. You trade 2 fig coins and half a joke for a bowl. It's spicy, strangely comforting, and comes with a spoon carved from bone. You try not to think about whose bone. Probably not human. Probably. The talk around the stew circle ranges from routes blocked by landslides to rumors of a new border tax in the north. But mostly, it's gossip, good, juicy, low-stakes gossip. Who's selling dyed wool as genuine phoenix feather? Who got caught swapping turmeric for sand? And whether the current sultan of a nearby city is actually allergic to silk. You slurp your stew and enjoy the show. A man sitting beside you, older, with a beard like a feather duster and a laugh like a cracked drum, leans in. I once saw a man try to bribe a tax collector with raisins. He swore they were enchanted. Said they made your dreams sweeter. Did it work, you ask? Oh no. But the collector liked raisins. So he let him through anyway. Lesson learned. Always pack raisins. Later, you explore the deeper halls of the caravanserai. There's a tiny shrine tucked between 2 storage rooms, candles flickering. A faint scent of myrrh in the air. You light one, unsure which god or spirit you're honoring. But it feels polite. A sign overhead reads something in Greek. And you make out only 2 words, safe journey. One room holds a kind of library. Scrolls, tablets, folded parchment, some labeled, some not. A few traders are reading. Or pretending to read while really just napping. You pick up a worn scroll and recognize a recipe for rosewater syrup, right next to what appears to be a coded trade route. You roll it back up. Smells like opportunity, and maybe cinnamon. By sundown, music fills the courtyard. A woman plays a flute-like instrument that makes the air shimmer. Someone else sings in a language you don't understand, but it wraps around your spine like warm fabric. The camels rest. Fires crackle. You feel almost cozy. It's easy to forget, in this moment, that you're technically in the middle of nowhere. That beyond these walls lie the wind and the salt and the silence. Inside, there's soup, and song, and maybe even some laughter that's not just because your feet fell asleep mid-step. You watch the shadows lengthen against the stone walls, listening to the rhythm of voices, spoons clinking, animals snuffling, and someone hiccuping gently in the corner. For now, this is home, temporary, imperfect, full of garlic, but safe. You lie on your mat, warmed by the last breath of firelight. You wonder how many others have slept in this very spot, stared at these very stars, and dreamed of peacocks, raisins, and a road that never quite ends. You wake up with a piece of straw stuck to your cheek and the taste of last night's stew still haunting your molars. Someone's already packed your sleeping mat. Someone else, less kindly, has repurposed it for camel padding. Cash looks suspiciously well rested. The caravan is already stirring. Traders mill about, checking their packs, tallying goods, muttering about the price of almonds. You tie your scarf, stretch your shoulders, and prepare to haul yourself back into the rhythm of the road. But today feels different. There's a hum in the air, a kind of excitement, because today, you're trading spices. It starts mid-morning, when the caravan detours into a narrow valley striped with shadows. You wouldn't think anything of it, except suddenly half the caravan is whispering like kids sneaking into a kitchen. The spice man's here. Someone tells you. You blink. The what? They just grin. You'll see. You do. 2 hours later, you crest a small ridge and descend into a patch of trees. Yes. Actual trees. With actual leaves, and there, tucked between a spring and a makeshift wooden platform, is what can only be described as the most aromatic pop-up shop in ancient history. Laid out on woven mats are mounds of spice, glittering saffron threads, coarse flakes of dried ginger, dried chilies coiled like tiny red dragons, and sacks of cloves that smell like an expensive dream. The trader himself is a wiry man with oil-slick hair and robes that somehow smell like 10 things at once: lemon, anise, cardamom, and something mysteriously sweet, possibly mango, possibly ancient magic. Clove, you learn, is worth its weight in pearls here. Nutmeg, almost suspiciously valuable. Peppercorns, little black bullets of gold. These spices aren't just flavor, they're luxury, medicine, perfume, and in some cases, highly suspect love potions. You're offered a sniff of something called desert fire dust that makes you sneeze so violently Cash flinches from 50 feet away. Historians still argue about how these spices were transported so far, so fast. Some claim relay caravans and spice-exclusive routes. Others whisper about smuggling networks hidden inside cargoes of wool or dried fish. One fringe theory suggests the use of trained hawks. No one believes that one, except the hawk guy. You crouch next to a sack of nutmeg and run your fingers through it. It's warm, slightly oily, and smells like your grandmother's kitchen. If your grandmother was also a powerful sorceress who ran a tea shop in the Himalayas, you consider buying some, until you realize the asking price includes not just coins but also a song, a story, or a particularly entertaining lie. You barter a tale about the time your camel fell asleep standing up and started sleepwalking into a cooking fire. The trader laughs and hands you a pouch. That's worth 2 spoons at least. He says, you notice Yuldu's nearby, deep in conversation with the spice man. She points to a bundle wrapped in silk. He nods solemnly. Later, she tells you it's galangal root, used in rare healing salves and one extremely strong type of desert tea. She's trading it with a healer 2 oases down. You ever use it? You ask. Only when someone's being dramatic. She replies, works faster than guild. You wander through the mats, learning more than you expected. There's a safetida, a pungent resin used like onions but 10 times stinkier. There's long pepper, thinner and spicier than the regular kind, which someone claims can cure melancholy if steeped in milk and sung to before dawn. You decide not to test that theory. The spices aren't just smells, they're stories. Every bundle has a tale. Someone harvested this in the wet hills of Assam. Someone else nearly lost a finger to get those saffron strands. Every whiff is a passport stamp, a secret map, a bribe waiting to happen. You overhear a negotiation for a single dried vanilla pod that involves a bolt of silk, a flask of fermented apricot wine, and a promise never to mention what happened last winter in Merv. You don't ask. Later, around the fire, someone roasts chickpeas dusted with cumin and salt. Someone else tosses dried dates into hot sand to caramelize them. You didn't know dates could taste like that. Rich, smoky, and a little like burnt sugar. You eat 6, possibly 7. No one judges. As the sun begins to dip behind the low hills, the traders start packing up. The spice man wraps his bundles with surprising tenderness, like tucking in a beloved pet. Before he leaves, he hands you a small pouch of something labeled, "Try it in tea," he says, winking, or throw it at a rude guard. Works either way. You stash it in your bag, next to your emergency apricot and your poorly folded scarf. The caravan moves out again, heavier now with new goods, lighter with coins and secrets exchanged. The air behind you still smells faintly of cloves and cinnamon, lingering like perfume on a farewell letter. That night, you lie on your mat beside the camels and think about spices. How a single clove can change a stew. How pepper once built empires. How something as small as a seed can travel farther than most people ever will. You watch the stars and wonder where this spice will end up. In a palace? In a poor man's soup? In someone's love potion gone terribly wrong? You smile. You fall asleep imagining a world stitched together not by conquest, but by flavor. The next morning, you're woken not by the rising sun, but by an argument near the grain sacks. I told you not to keep the turmeric next to the frankincense, someone is shouting. Now the camels smell like a holy curry. You rub your eyes, stretch your spine, and find Cash already munching on a spiced flatbread like it's a personal triumph. He gestures to a pot nearby. Cumin lentil stew. Tastes like ambition. The road today cuts across salt flats that shimmer like beaten silver. It's quiet, except for the wind and the rhythmic clink of harness reins. You spend most of it thinking about the pouch the spice man gave you. It smells faintly floral now, almost peppery, but it refuses to reveal its true identity. You decide to call it possibility. At the midday halt, you spot a group of children from a nearby village trailing the caravan, giggling and pointing at the dyed fabrics, at Cash's turban, at the unmistakable red smear of sumac staining someone's fingers. One girl, bold as a hawk, runs up and asks what you're carrying. You kneel and show her the pouch. She sniffs it, then beams. "That's for stories," she says. You blink. "You can smell that?" She nods. Entirely serious. "My grandmother says some spices aren't for eating. They're for remembering. Later, when you share this with you'll do's." She only says, "Smart kid," and hands you a roasted chickpea. By evening, the terrain rises again, the sand giving way to gravel and rock. There's talk of stopping at a fortress town tomorrow. A place with thick walls. A decent market. And an inn where the tea is spiked with something minty and slightly illegal. You wonder if it's the same possibility you're carrying. That night, as the fire crackles and the stars emerge like spilled sugar, the spice stories continue. Someone recounts a tale of a cinnamon smuggler who once escaped a siege by disguising himself as a dancing girl. Another swears they saw a cinnamon tree once, on an island full of monkeys and ghosts. You sip from your flask and decide this is what history forgets to mention. Not the wars. Not the kings. But the trade of flavor. The migration of taste. You think of a cinnamon stick crossing oceans. Of peppercorns packed in silk. Of cloves hidden in hollowed-out walking staffs. You glance at your pouch again. Just a little mystery. But in the right hands. Maybe it's a recipe. Maybe it's a spell. Maybe it's the beginning of someone else's story. You smile into the firelight. And for the first time in a while, you don't just feel like a traveler. You feel like part of the spice road. By mid-morning, the fortress appears, tolerant, carved into ochre stone like it grew out of the mountain's bones. Its walls rise steep and sunburned, crenellated like broken teeth, and bristling with guards too bored to be polite. You enter through a gate choked with traffic, camels groaning, goats arguing with their owners, and a man pushing a cart of dried figs while loudly claiming they can cure regret. Inside, Toleran is a knot of narrow alleys and shaded courtyards. Its air thick with frying oil and sandalwood smoke. You smell mint, sweat, something suspiciously like fried crickets, and under it all, spice. Always spice. It's everywhere, painted onto bread, hung in bundles from rafters, rubbed into meat, rubbed into people. Cash disappears almost immediately. You suspect gambling, or romance, possibly both. You and you'll do's head for the market square. A buzzing mosaic of sound and motion. There's a tea seller using a kettle that hisses like a snake. A barber offering free gossip with every trim. A merchant hawking genuine phoenix feathers that look suspiciously like dyed chicken fluff. And in the center of it all, a spice auction. It's not formal. Exactly, just a raised wooden platform surrounded by a crush of traders. Each hollering louder than the last. On the block, a gleaming jar of preserved ginger, a leather pouch of blue salt from the coast, and a curious, star-shaped fruit that no one can name but everyone wants. You lean in. A man offers 3 bolts of cloth and a silver mirror. Someone else raises him with a carved ivory comb. Then comes a voice behind you. Try the pouch. You turn. It's the spice man, somehow here. Again, robes a little dustier, but smile still sharp. You fumble the small pouch he gave you. The one that smells like answers. You walk up, unwrap it, and sprinkle just a pinch into a bowl of hot water a boy nearby is using to test saffron. Steam rises, and then the air shifts. Suddenly, everyone's quiet. Someone whispers, "What is that?" The auctioneer sniffs. His eyes widen. "It smells like my wedding day, and the sea, and my grandmother's stew." A woman next to you breathes in deeply and tears up. "I think I just forgave my ex-husband." There's a beat of reverent silence, broken only when the boy holding the bowl sneezes so hard he almost falls over. The bidding explodes. People shouting numbers, promises, favors. One woman offering her prized desert horse and her brother's hand in marriage. He looks scandalized. You don't sell it. You smile, pocket the rest, and walk away. Later, you and you'll do's sit on the inn's rooftop, watching the sky change colors like a lazy chameleon. Below, the market slowly dims, folding into the night. She nudges you. "What was in the pouch?" You shrug. "Possibility." She laughs. "Whatever it was, you made a legend out of it." You sip the minty, questionable tea and watch stars blink away. And you wonder if a single pinch of mystery can stir up that much longing in a crowd. What other forgotten flavors are still out there? What other moments are waiting to be unwrapped? You smile, because tomorrow, the road leads east, and you are no longer just following spice. You're chasing stories. 2 days east of Tolerant. Past a canyon that echoes back your secrets and a ravine full of goats with disturbingly human eyes. You reach a place not found on most maps, Khal Sharif. It looks ordinary at first, a sleepy oasis town nestled in the crook of a dried riverbed. Date palms sway lazily, kids chase chickens, a camel yawns so hard it nearly falls over. But something's off. The guards at the gate wear masks shaped like spices, cinnamon sticks, chili horns, saffron fans, and they don't ask for coin. They ask for secrecy. You nod. Yulduz swears under her breath. Cash looks delighted. Then the gates creak open, and you're inside the festival of forbidden flavors. It happens once every 7 years. When 5 moons align, or when the elders get bored. Depends on who you ask. For 3 nights, Khal Sharif becomes a haven for spices banned, lost, feared, or just too delicious for polite society. Booths line the winding alleys like carnival tents in a dream. Lanterns drip light in every color of the tongue. And the smells, gods. The smells are reckless. Floral, musky, smoky, fermented. Something smells like regret soaked in honey. Another like laughter if it could be pickled. At the first stall, you're offered a tiny glass of whisper root broth, illegal in most ports because it causes temporary telepathy. You sip. Cash immediately glares at you. Stop thinking about that one time in the bathhouse. He hisses. You weren't, but now you are. Next comes a slice of fermented desert truffle, dusted in black lime and served on a shard of polished obsidian. Supposedly it lets you hear plants for an hour. You listen. A nearby cactus tells you to hydrate more. You pass booths of ghost pepper jelly said to summon ancestors, or, if misused, terrible poetry. Moonfruit, which glows faintly and tastes like pear. Mint, and your first heartbreak. Salt of the Sirens, banned by coastal kings because sailors would follow its scent straight off cliffs. Some flavors are too strong, even for you. A puff of star anise smoke makes Yulduz forget how to pronounce her own name for 20 minutes. A single nibble of bitter lotus bark has a grown man crying into his sandal. But the centerpiece of the festival is saved for nightfall, the banquet of the unnamed spice. No one knows what it is, not even the cooks. It changes every time, brought in under silk and song, guarded by mute monks in gold-dusted robes. This year, it arrives in a sealed black box, placed at the center of a long firelit table beneath the moon. You sit among strangers, merchants, exiles, a prince in disguise, and someone who might be a ghost. The box opens. Inside, a single paste, earthy, glowing faintly green, and pulsing with scent, like cedarwood, rose, ozone, and old paper. You dip your finger in. Taste it. The world slows. For one moment, you are a child in your mother's kitchen. Then a sailor on a ship made of salt. Then a bird. Then a myth. Then yourself again. You exhale. Everyone at the table is smiling, or crying, or whispering thank you to no one. When the banquet ends, you don't speak. Not until later, by the fire. When Yulduz says, "Would you do it again?" You think of the cactus, of the sailors, of the nameless spice that made you feel more real than you ever have. You nod. Absolutely. Cash hums. Next time, I'm smuggling out a jar. He's joking. Probably. That night, you lie on a borrowed mat under string lights and silk lanterns. Heart full, mouth tingling, dreams awash in color. The air still tastes of mystery. You fall asleep knowing some flavors were never meant to be remembered. But you will. The road grows stranger as you follow the old smuggling routes eastward, less road and more memory. Sand dunes stretch like frozen waves, whispering of caravans that never made it, of cities swallowed whole, of trades that went too far and too fast. 3 days out from Khal Sharif, the wind shifts. It brings with it a smell, sharp, familiar, wrong, not rot, not heat, spice. You and Yulduz crest a dune just as the sun begins to bake the world into gold. And there, half buried in the sand, you see a ship, in the middle of the desert. Its wooden ribs jut out from the dune like the skeleton of some ancient beast. And you think for a wild second that it might get up and walk away. But it doesn't. It just sits, groaning softly under the weight of centuries and secrets. Locals call it the gilded whale. No one knows how it got here. Some say it was carried by a tsunami long before the sea retreated. Others say it sailed the dunes like a ghost, blown by winds too strong for maps. One old man claimed it belonged to a spice pirate who tried to outrun time. That one feels true. Inside, the air is still, cool. The wood creaks like it remembers storms. You and you'll do's move carefully through shattered decks and tilted corridors, past rusted chains and abandoned chests. And then, below the main hold, you find it, a cargo bay lined with sealed amphorae. Hundreds of them, wax still intact, symbols etched in languages no one speaks anymore. You crack one open and the scent hits like a prayer: coriander, cinnamon, mace, but fresher than it has any right to be. One jar contains what looks like black salt dusted with silver flakes. Another is full of amber sugar crystals the size of your thumb. There's a barrel labeled only with a symbol that means, for the emperor's second wife, and no one else. You do not open that one. Yulduz mutters something about ancient curses and gently moves it behind a support beam. There are recipes etched onto the wood in old merchant script. Stew of moonless nights, for cold dunes and colder betrayals. Spiced milk of reconciliation, 1 drop required. 2 if desperate. Tincture of the final toast, serve only to guests you'll never see again. You find a sealed sachet, wrapped in sharkskin and silk. Labeled, if found, tell my sons I sailed with flavor. Cash, who somehow found his way down here through the hull's broken side, holds up a jar of what looks like pickled desert rose petals suspended in oil. I licked one, he says, eyes wide. Now I can remember my birth. You take only what you can carry. A vial of preserved tamarind paste. A scroll that smells like clove and regret. A small jar of powdered something labeled, to be used only at dawn. With music, you leave the ship as the wind begins to rise. Behind you, the gilded whale shifts in the sand, creaking like it's exhaling. You wonder if it remembers being part of the sea. You wonder if spices can mourn. That night, you light a small fire on the edge of the dunes. You brew tea using a single flake of the ancient cinnamon and a pinch of that unknown powder. You drink, and for a moment, the stars seem closer, brighter, as if the sky itself had taken a sip and was now humming an old, forgotten song. You lean back on your mat, flavors dancing across your tongue, the shipwreck behind you and 1,000 roads ahead. And you know, some spices are more than food. They're legacy, they're maps, they're ghosts. And tonight, you are their keeper. The road narrows, then disappears. For 2 days, your caravan follows a dry wadi winding through cliffs the color of scorched parchment. You see no other travelers. Even the camels tread softer here. Locals speak of a place the maps won't name, only refer to in lowered voices as thumb. The archive that eats itself. You think it's a metaphor. It isn't. You find it just before dawn on the 3rd day. A carved doorway hidden beneath a collapsed overhang. Flanked by obsidian pillars etched with scripts older than ink. No guards. Just a wind that smells faintly of rosemary, ink, and dusty lemons. Inside, cold silence. The archive of Thumb is carved deep into the rock. A labyrinth of vaults and chambers. Scrolls and spices shelved together like equals. Light filters in from slits in the ceiling, casting slow-moving shafts across the sandstone floor. You hear your footsteps and your heartbeat. Nothing else. At first glance, it's a library. At second glance, it's a temple. Every corridor smells different. One holds the scent of browned butter and thyme. Another, ghostly cinnamon and rain. Some rooms are locked. Others feel locked, though no doors bar the way. You are not alone. The archivists appear soundlessly, wearing robes stitched with symbols of spoons, pestles, and hourglasses. Their faces are calm, their eyes unblinking. They ask you one question before allowing you deeper. Do you seek flavor, or do you seek truth? You answer, both. They smile. You are shown to a chamber with no title, just a symbol of a cracked mortar. Inside, you find recipes inscribed on gold leaf, rolled into tubes and sealed with wax made from extinct bees. One is labeled, the soup that broke a war. Another, ink stew of the memoryless poet. There's a rice recipe annotated in 5 languages, with footnotes written in rhyme. There's a shelf of dried ingredients, each sealed in crystal. Petals from vanished flowers. A twist of something called sky salt. And a single vial of smoke that never dissipates. You're told it's the preserved scent of the last apricot tree in a lost orchard. One scroll is open on the reading pedestal. You lean in. The recipe is for a dish that, if prepared correctly, allows the eater to remember their most important forgotten moment. The ingredients include a strand of hair from someone who once saved your life, and is soaked in moonlight, a whisper caught in a jar, and something called saffron of the second chance. Yulduz reads over your shoulder. This isn't cooking, she murmurs. It's resurrection. You ask an archivist how the recipes were gathered. Some were traded, they say. Some were stolen. Some were cooked once and never again. We remember them so the world won't forget what flavor once meant. You ask if you can copy one. They nod, then hand you a spice-stained quill and a sheet of thin rice parchment. You write slowly, reverently. Later, at the exit, one archivist hands you a pouch of dusty green powder. Use this only when the memory must return, they say, and serve it warm. You step back into the sun, scroll tucked into your satchel, lungs full of the past, heart trembling with wonder. Behind you, the door closes, and somewhere, deep in the archive of Thumb, another scroll begins to write itself. Your story. You leave Selwyn with a satchel full of strange spices and songs that live in your throat like a saying. The road inland is drier again, hotter, but it feels gentler now, as if the dust recognizes your footsteps. You're not just a traveler anymore. You've become something else. A carrier, a keeper. You notice it first in how the traders treat you, not just with nods or greetings, but coo, to felt. One night, around the fire, Cash starts humming one of the Selwind recipes. Yulduz joins in, slightly off-key. You add a harmony. Before long, the whole caravan is humming, this mismatched family of traders, thieves, scholars, and cooks swaying under the stars to the tune of something unrecorded, but unforgettable. You change. You know this. You can smell the layers in a stew now like reading a poem. You can name 7 kinds of cinnamon by scent alone. You can tell when someone's hiding something by the kind of spice they wear behind their ears. At one stop, a merchant offers you a map. It's not ink on paper, it's a jar. Inside, layered powders, nutmeg, sand. You try. You smell cardamom, charcoal smoke, the inside of a story you haven't lived yet. The next day, a storm hits. A proper desert tantrum, wind, sand, thunder that feels like it's rolling over your spine. You all huddle under tarps and tents, boiling chickpeas and waiting it out. Someone hands you a date stuffed with crushed almonds and lime peel. It tastes like defiance. That night, the storm clears, the stars return, the world is scrubbed raw and new. Yulduz sits beside you, cradling a scroll she picked up from a hidden monastery in Selwyn, sealed with beeswax. Unread. She hasn't opened it yet. Neither of you need to say why. Some flavors have to wait. You reach into your pack, pull out a familiar pouch, the one from the Spice Man. There's barely any left, just enough for one more cup. You brew it slowly, carefully, pour it into 2 small cups. You toast in silence. Then you drink. It tastes like everything. Dust, fire, childhood, risk, cinnamon and goodbye, sunlight and possibility. It tastes like the road. And in that moment, you know, you could settle somewhere. Build a house, open a shop, trade spices for stories and soup. But not yet, because the road is still ahead, and you are still walking it. And somewhere, past the next ridge, past the next market, past the next firelit night, there's a spice no one's tasted yet. And it's waiting for you. The road thins to nothing. You follow goat trails, then bird paths, then finally, your instincts. Even your map stops trying, offering only a painted swirl labeled in apologetic gold ink. 3 days from the last known well. The wind changes. It doesn't blow anymore, it calls. Not with sound, with scent. Not just spices. Not even food. Memory itself. Rendered aromatic. You smell your grandmother's kitchen. A lost lover's hair. Rain on stone. Paper scorched by fire. Hope. Cash stops joking. Yulduz goes quiet. Even the camels walk softer. And then, the valley. It's not what you expect. Not lush. Not green. Not guarded by dragons or demigods. Just a wide basin tucked between silent mountains. Carpeted in low, silver grass and lit from within by a kind of golden haze that makes no sense. But feels right. You descend slowly. Breath held. The air is thick, not heavy, but rich. Every breath is a taste. Every step is a recipe your tongue somehow understands without learning. You find no people, no buildings, just flavor. Clove trees taller than memory. A spring that smells like anise and clarity. Stone outcroppings shaped like mortars, each holding dust, some red, some gold, one that shimmers like pearl and cinna. You taste nothing, not yet. Everyone says the same thing. Wait until the valley. You set camp. Night comes, and with it, silence so dense it Vitaste, like. Then, not. A single petal floats onto your lap. Soft, pale gold. You taw, and the world opens. Not in images, but in flavors so pure they have S. The first fire lit to cook the F. The salt from the first tea. The resin used to seal peace between two ancient tribes, lost to time, but preserved in this place. The bitterness of the first betrayal softened by the sweetness of forgiveness. Yo, this valley, it isn't the origin of spice. It's the memory of flavor itself. The source of why we taste, why we gather, why we cook, why we share. You don't sleep tea. No O. In the 1C place. The ART. The spy. You. Because this story it's, and the. You leave the valley of first flavor with the seed wrapped in linen and tucked in a leather pouch that once held dried figs. It's warm. Occasionally it pulses, just once. Like a heartbeat. You'll do's won't touch it. Cash pretends not to be curious. But you catch him watching your pack like it might hatch. You don't take the main roads. You can't. Spices are heavy things, not by weight, but by meaning. This seed is the heaviest of all. You cross dunes so quiet they feel underwater. You pass through ghost markets, long abandoned, where empty stalls still smell faintly of cardamom and toasted bread. In one village, an old woman stops you and says, "Your shadow smells like saffron." Then she closes her door and doesn't open it again. After a week, you reach an unnamed grove, just outside the memory of Thumb, where wild mint grows uninvited and bees hum like gossip. You dig, not deep, just enough. You place the seed into the earth and pause. Then you add a pinch of Selwyn's sea memory dust. One breath from the valley. A tear, your own. Surprised and uninvited. You cover it, sit beside it, wait. Nothing happens for 3 days. Then, on the 4th morning, you wake to a scent that defies metaphor. It smells like yes, like the first bite of something you didn't know you missed. Like safety, but awake. The sprout is tiny, green veined with gold, leaves shaped like no tree you've ever seen, part basil, part bay, part music. It hums, not out loud, but somewhere deep in your ribs. Word spreads. Within a month, merchants arrive, pilgrims, cooks, even a prince dressed as a monk. They don't touch the sprout. They just sit near it. Some cry, some sing. One man claims it cured his bitterness. Another says it made her stew honest again. You don't claim ownership. You just tend it, water it. Listen. One day, the spice man returns. His robe is tattered, his scent even more mysterious. He stands beside you and says nothing for a long time. Then, you understand now, don't you? You nod. Because you do. Spice was never about heat, or flavor, or even trade. It was about memory, connection, story. And now, with this sprout, you've begun writing a new one. Yay, you stay. Not because you can't leave, but because the world. The sprout becomes a tree, not tea. You build a home nearby. Simple, walls of clay, a roof of woven spice mats. No door. Just a curtain that flutters when truth walks in. Yulduz returns often. She brings scrolls, stories, rare roots. Cash never truly leaves. He runs the tea stall that appeared, somehow, next to the tree. His cinnamon mint blend is now whispered about in 5 languages. And it are. People come for its leaves. Not to steal, just to borrow. One leaf, brewed properly, shows you a flavor you've forgotten. A truth you've buried. A part of yourself that still wants to speak. A child once brewed a leaf and saw her mother's lullaby. Long lost to time. She didn't cry. She just hummed it back into the wind. A warlord came with weapons and left them behind. I only needed to taste peace once. He said. The archivists of Thumb offered to name the tree. You said, it already has one. No one knows what it is. But everyone knows what it means. One night, Much later, after your hands have wrinkled and your voice has grown steep like old tea, a traveler arrives. Young, dusty, bright-eyed. They sit beside the tree. Say nothing for a long time. Then, someone told me this place was real. You smile. It is. They hold out a pouch. I brought a seed. Your heart stirs. You look at the tree. It sheds a single golden leaf. The wind lifts. The stars blink approval. And just like that, the story begins again.